Imagine stepping onto a plane, ticket in hand, dressed for success, ready for one of the most important trips of your career. You've built a company from scratch, you've secured a meeting that could change everything, and you know this flight is just one small step on your journey to greatness. Now imagine being stopped, not because of your seat assignment, not because of security, but because of the body you were born with. That's exactly what happened to Vanessa Carter, a powerful black businesswoman whose confidence was matched only by the empire she had built. The moment she sat down in her first-class seat, the flight attendant leaned in, her voice dripping with disdain. "Ma'am, you're too big for this section." The words cut through the cabin like a blade. Passengers glanced up from their phones, some pretending not to notice, others staring wide-eyed, shocked that such a thing had just been said out loud. Vanessa, stunned but composed, looked straight at the woman and asked, "Are you saying I don't belong in first class?" The flight attendant smirked, folded her arms, and replied, "I'm just saying, maybe economy would be a better fit for you." The humiliation was deliberate. But what the flight attendant didn't realize was this: Vanessa wasn't just another passenger. She was a CEO on her way to close a billion-dollar partnership. And with one call, she was about to flip the script, not just on the flight attendant, but on the entire airline. This isn't just a story about cruelty at 30,000 feet. It's about power, dignity, and how one act of discrimination can cost an entire company everything. The morning of the flight had started like any other for Vanessa. She had flown dozens of times before, but this trip carried more weight than usual. Her company, Carter Global Logistics, was on the verge of securing a billion-dollar contract with an international shipping conglomerate. The meeting in Los Angeles was the culmination of months of negotiations, and if she nailed it, the deal would not only expand her company across 3 continents, but also create thousands of new jobs back home. She arrived at the airport early, her assistant by her side, dressed in a tailored navy dress that exuded professionalism. Vanessa wasn't just traveling, she was representing her entire company. At the check-in counter, everything went smoothly. She was confirmed for seat 2A in first class, luggage tagged priority, boarding pass printed. She breezed through security, took a few calls in the lounge, and by the time boarding was announced, she felt confident and focused. But when she stepped into the first-class cabin, things shifted. The flight attendant, Karen Dawson, was standing by the door, greeting passengers. She smiled warmly at a white businessman ahead of Vanessa, but when her eyes landed on Vanessa, the smile disappeared. Her gaze flickered up and down, sizing her up in an instant. Vanessa didn't think much of it at first. She found her seat, stowed her bag, and sat down. Moments later, Karen appeared at her side. "Excuse me, ma'am," she said, lowering her voice. "I think you might be more comfortable in economy." Vanessa blinked. "I'm sorry." "Well," Karen continued, "the seats up here are designed differently. With your size, you might have more room in the back." The words hit hard. Vanessa felt her chest tighten. She looked around. Several passengers were now listening. A man across the aisle shifted uncomfortably, while a woman in the next row raised her eyebrows in disbelief. "I paid for this seat," Vanessa replied evenly. "I belong here." Karen gave a thin smile. "Of course, but I just don't want other passengers to feel crowded. It's about comfort, for everyone." It was clear this wasn't about comfort. It was about prejudice. Vanessa felt the sting of every moment in her life when she had been underestimated, overlooked, or judged, not just for her body, but for her skin. She thought of her mother, who had always told her, "Never let anyone tell you where you don't belong." She took a slow breath, steadied her voice, and asked, "Is this your official policy? Or just your opinion?" Karen hesitated. "I'm just trying to help." But Vanessa knew better. And that's when she quietly pulled out her phone and typed a single text, "Call me. Urgent." It was to the chairman of the very conglomerate she was scheduled to meet the next day. And it set in motion a chain of events no one on that plane could have predicted. The rest of the flight was tense. Vanessa stayed in her seat, head held high, while Karen moved up and down the aisle, serving others with forced smiles but avoiding Vanessa completely. Not once did she offer her water, not once did she check on her, as if Vanessa didn't exist. Passengers whispered. Some were outraged, others uncomfortable. A young couple even leaned over to say quietly, "We saw what she did. That was wrong. If you need witnesses, we'll back you up." Vanessa thanked them but said nothing more. She was saving her energy for what came next. Midway through the flight, she received a reply to her message. Her phone buzzed with a short but powerful text, "Understood. Handle it your way. We'll follow your lead." The chairman had given her full control. By the time the plane landed in Los Angeles, Vanessa had already crafted her plan. As passengers gathered their belongings, Karen approached again, her tone dripping with false sweetness. "I hope you enjoyed your flight, ma'am." Vanessa looked her dead in the eye and said, "You'll regret those words." When she stepped off the plane, Vanessa was greeted not by her assistant, but by 3 executives from the shipping conglomerate, waiting at the gate. They had heard everything. Vanessa had made sure of it. She calmly recounted the incident, showing them the notes and witness offers she had received. The executives were appalled. One of them muttered, "If this is how they treat their own customers, how can we trust them with our global operations?" The deal that was supposed to be signed the next morning, the billion-dollar partnership, was suddenly in jeopardy. Not because of Vanessa, but because of the airline. News spread quickly. Within hours, social media lit up with hashtags like #TooBigToFly and #racism in disguise. Passengers from the flight posted their accounts online, backing Vanessa's story. The airline scrambled to issue a statement, but it was too late. The damage was done. The shipping conglomerate officially canceled the deal with the airline, citing failure to meet ethical and professional standards. Instead, they signed exclusively with Carter Global Logistics, Vanessa's company. The ripple effect was massive. The airline's stock price dipped overnight. Headlines screamed, "Racist flight attendant costs airline $1 billion deal." And Karen? She was terminated within 24 hours. But Vanessa didn't stop there. She gave a press conference the following week, not to gloat, but to send a message. "This isn't just about me. This is about every black woman who has ever been told she's too much, too big, or doesn't belong. We belong everywhere we've worked for, and we're not moving to the back for anyone." The room erupted in applause. And Vanessa walked away not just as a CEO who closed a billion-dollar deal, but as a leader who showed the world that dignity has no price tag. So, what does Vanessa's story teach us? It shows us that racism doesn't always come in the form of loud insults or obvious hate. Sometimes it hides behind concerns about comfort or helpful suggestions meant to disguise prejudice as politeness. But make no mistake, discrimination is discrimination, no matter how softly it's spoken. Vanessa didn't back down. She didn't let herself be humiliated. Instead, she stayed calm, used her voice, and turned one ugly moment into a powerful turning point, not just for herself, but for her entire company. And that's the lesson for all of us. You don't need to be a billionaire CEO to demand respect. You don't need a billion-dollar deal to prove your worth. All you need is the courage to say, "I belong here. I deserve this seat. And I will not be moved." Now, imagine yourself in Vanessa's position. Would you have stayed silent? Would you have laughed it off to avoid conflict? Or would you have stood tall and claimed your place, just like she did? If this story inspired you, don't let it stop here. Share it. Talk about it. And if you want more stories of resilience, justice, and the courage to stand against discrimination, subscribe to this channel. Because the truth is simple, respect isn't optional. It isn't negotiable. And when someone tries to take it away, you have every right to fight back. Vanessa did. And in doing so, she reminded the world that sometimes the most powerful call you can make isn't to close a deal, it's to demand dignity.